So this for those who've been with it, we have a special edition, and for those who have listened to our special editions before, you know that we go all in and all out on these things. So
Yes.
spoiler alert, we will be talking about one of the more anticipated movies of the early half, one of the most anticipated movies of the early part of the year, I think. So spoiler alert, we are gonna talk about all the ins and outs of Renfield. If you're listening to this show, you probably have already seen it, but if you haven't had a chance to get around to it, because there's some good stuff out there right now. Just again, final spoiler alert, we are going to talk about Renfield, and well, I can't think of any way to ruin it honestly right now.
Shit,
But
you know what you're getting.
yeah,
You could
it's
not be
a
spoiled.
it's a Dracula movie.
Yeah.
But Renfield, you mentioned a few episodes ago how this is maybe your most anticipated movie of the
Yeah.
year. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Um, I hate to say at the beginning what we feel about it, but I will say that going into the movie, I would say that this movie is whenever you're looking forward, and you can, we always say, we try as hard as you can, you try to go into a movie with no expectations. But when you really want to see something, like it's kind of hard not to go in with a little bit of like trepidation and fear.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first movie in quite a while that I went in like really worried. And the
Really? Okay.
trailers were great.
Yeah.
Everything, I didn't hear anything bad about it. Like I didn't heard anything about it, but but because I was so looking forward to it, I was really worried going into this.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. That's interesting. I kind of, man, I've maybe it's just how life has been lately, but I kind of skipped into that theater very carefree and happy go happy go like so
That's
like
cool.
yeah, I think it was mostly because that last trailer, which again, I it may have shown too much, man, to be honest with you.
Right.
But it really did kind of drive home just how absurd I think the movie was going to be. And I mean that in like the best way possible. Like absurdity is in the thing like this is kind of what they're playing on. And I really like that almost slapstick level of nonsense, especially obviously in the horror with a horror tinge and yeah. So I walked into that theater like I did. My expectations were actually pretty low, I guess. Like I didn't expect to be just completely floored or blown away by how awesome it was, but I did expect to have a good time with it. And yeah, yeah, good times were had by some, I think, by
Yeah,
most.
I would
Yeah,
agree with that. So,
yeah.
one of the things that had me worried was Nicholas Holt, like a great actor, like we've seen him
Hmm.
in the favorite anime, The Great. Nicholas Cage, don't need to run down his resume. Aquafina she's really good. She's
Great.
Crazy Rich Asians. She's in The Farewell, which is a more serious role, so you can kind of see her go in both directions. So
Yep.
the tone was one thing that worried me, and it wasn't that I didn't think it wasn't going to be funny because the trailers looked hilarious, and it wasn't that I didn't think it was going to be scary because there was also some really gruesome trailers. I just wasn't sure how the two would work together. Like it's yeah, there's lots of comedy horror, lots of great comedy horrors, but
Sure.
man, when they fail hard. So I was really worried about this one, but the tone
Okay.
for
Yeah.
this really well done. It's consistent throughout the movie, and it mixes horror and comedy consistently, like throughout the entire runtime, very well.
I completely agree. The way Nicholas Holt kind of starts the movie with his like little narrative about and like this really great montage of stuff that's happened, you know, in the past leading up to what where he was that particular day. I loved that setup. You know,
Right.
I thought that setup was such a it kind of brought us into the world, showed you how ridiculous it was going to be, and yeah, it just really kept on that without going, you know, like it was totally crazy, totally absurd at
Yeah.
times. And but this was just such a fun playground for all these characters, you know. And it was interesting too because you don't really see, I mean, well, Aquafina is kind of, you've seen her now a couple times, I guess, kind of play this like straight man in a way. and
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, and I thought she did a great job with that.
Yeah, that was a really cool decision. I like also you had mentioned the opening. Like there's all these like homages to like Bela
Yeah.
Lugosi and the Universal Dracula pics from way back when. I absolutely loved, and this continues like throughout the movie, all the way till the very end where it has the title screen, which looks like something out of like the 70s or
Yeah.
something out of a poster in the 70s. Also, we've talked about this character before. Um, Bram Stoker, or was it Francis Ford Coppola did it. It's not very often that you see
Oh,
Quincy
Quincy
Morris,
Morris. Yeah.
and you get a pretty hardcore reference to Quincy Morris in this. And it's a small thing, and they don't really delve too deeply into it. But if you know the story, I think you can't help but have like really appreciated that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I know we kind of leaned over to each other and we're like, oh, like get a little of that. And it's
Yeah,
because I mean we are true horror and literary nerds. And yeah, he's the guy who kills Dracula, actually, everybody.
yeah, from Texas.
From Texas, as you would need one from Texas to take care of your Dracula business. Quincy Morris gets it done. And yeah, really cool to see that. And I that was also it happens really early. And it was also kind of one of those things that kind of made me sit back in my seat and go, like, yeah, I think I'm in for like a fun time, you know.
And that's what's really cool. Like you mentioned, like so Aquafina, like it's a comedy, and not that she's unfunny, like she has a lot of good
Oh, she's great.
one-liners, and yeah, she's super good. She's a really good character in this. But you're right, she plays it straight, but the movie never takes itself too seriously, and I think that's really important. Like there's no exposition in it, but there's some downtime in it. But I don't know if you had the same feeling with the downtime. To me was when they're talking about what's going on, it almost felt like a spoof of a serious one, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't. Yeah, but it wasn't like it didn't feel silly either. Like it went with the tone of the rest of the movie, but it also wasn't like, okay, now this is where they explain Dracula's origins or why
Right. Which you don't need to
Renfield.
do, right.
Yeah, and that's another great part of the movie that we can get into when they talk about the past and stuff. But I think that this movie knew exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Now, it never ever took itself seriously, which I think was super important.
No, I couldn't, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. The really, I think the one of the things that I really enjoyed so much about it was, yeah, that it had this like I don't want to say like Naked Gun or Hot Shots, because that's a little bit more goofy than this.
Yeah,
Um, but kind of in the same, like you kind of what you're saying, kind of in that same vein of like, yeah, this is like this is done fully with tongue in cheek, but we're gonna play it as seriously as we can with our tongue in our cheek. And that adds this like level of like gravitas to like the shit that happens, because you don't think, like, for instance, with the his like he's been Nicholas Holtz, so Renfield's been going to this support group, right? And it's like for support group for like losers. It's hilarious. It's
it's
like
great.
it's so good. And you start to really care about like all these characters,
Right.
as tertiary as they all are. You
Yeah.
really start to really care, and you start to feel like a part of the group, you know. So when, you know, as the inevitable happens, you know, Dracula uh gains to himself to full power, and he shows, you know, so like you're kind of like going like, no, they're not gonna murder all these people. Oh yes.
He
Oh,
destroys them.
he destroys them in one of the funniest scenes. I thought personally, I think I was laughing maybe more than the rest of the audience, but that scene was hilarious.
It was great, and you hit the nail on the head. Like I think like the writing regarding that support group is probably like the
Yeah.
highlight, not necessarily the highlight of the movie, but
Sure.
definitely the highlight of the writing is how well this support group that they play heavy in the trailer, but not so much in the movie.
All right.
But what you get in the movie is super effective, and it really makes you care for them. Like I think that's one of the best things because they're in what 3 4 scenes
3 or 4
before
scenes. Yeah.
Dracula like just massacres them. And you're right, you're thinking like, no, it's not going to happen, or someone's going to get away, or something's going to happen. But no, he kills them all brutally. And there was even people at, well, another thing, we had a great crowd, I thought.
Great crowd. Great
and
crowd. The guy behind us, man.
they were like, and there's an awesome, like we'll get into the
Uh,
ska stuff right now, but the crowd was loving it. But
yes.
the when the support group died, and they do come back in the end, but no, we didn't know that at the time.
Right.
But
Right.
like there was like audible, there's people in the audience who are like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
like that's when you know that the movie
Yeah.
has you hooked. And I mean, I was super disappointed to see him kill him.
Oh, I was truly bummed, because you really do. You have like this like sympathy for these characters, all these guys, and Renfield too. Renfield
Yeah.
himself is such a like okay. So here's one of the problems I have with like his storytelling thing. They try to play this family card like late for him.
They half-assed that.
They totally half-assed that. That is, they might as well not have put that in there.
I
Um,
honestly don't understand why they did.
yeah, it means absolutely nothing other than a couple conversations that don't even really flesh him out or make him likable
No.
by Aquafina any more or less, right? So
Right.
it does, yeah, it totally botched that, but you know that may be it. I love him as a character. Renfield was so fun. He had this like boyish like charm and naivete, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
That you would have thought would have got old, kind of quick, but it didn't for me. I thought
No.
his like kind of innocence kind of kept him very likable, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. What they yeah, they did botch the whole family connection. And I don't know if this is what the case is, but I'm thinking maybe that there was like this will they won't they thing between him and
Oh,
Aquafina they were
Aquafina.
going possibly that they were going for. But if they had done that, wanted that, they would have had to go longer, and that the movie didn't need to go long. It was like a perfect length. And
Yeah.
I don't think they really needed to add that. One thing that they removed, I think, from the trailers to the movie is